Have you ever wondered if there's just one single unifying thread that weaves through the entire Bible? Well, today we're going on a bit of a journey. We're going to trace a foundational blueprint that connects some of the oldest texts in Scripture with the New Testament, and what we'll find is a surprisingly consistent message right from the very beginning to the very end. Yeah, that's the big question, right? And it really gets to the heart of what we're exploring. We're going to look at Genesis, Psalm 19, and the Gospel of John. These texts were written centuries apart, but we're going to see how they all point to the exact same blueprint for life and order.
Before you ever get to the stories about kings or prophets or the exiles, the biblical story starts with something way more fundamental. It lays down a foundation that's built on just four key pillars: creation, order, instruction, and responsibility. Everything else that comes later, it all rests on this bedrock.
So let's start at the very, very beginning. The story of creation, it doesn't begin with a physical act. It begins with a sound, with a divine word that is this active and incredibly powerful force.
Okay, check out this parallel here, because it's so powerful. Over in Genesis, God speaks, and boom, life comes into being. Then centuries later, the Gospel of John opens with, "In the beginning was the Word, and that through him all things were made." It's the exact same concept, just being seen from a different point in the overall story.
And this is the crucial takeaway. The message isn't changing or getting replaced over time, it's being consistently revealed. What was true in Genesis is just as true in John. And this idea of continuity, well, that's the key that unlocks everything else we're about to dig into.
All right, let's move to the very first act of that creation and see how this whole thing builds. That first act is the creation of light. And believe me, its purpose is way more profound than just helping us see in the dark. So, light is the #1 tool for establishing order. And again, this isn't just about visibility. It's about creating a moral and a physical structure for the world, a framework for absolutely everything that's going to follow. And you can see its job right here. Light is what separates order from all that primordial chaos. It's what allows for distinction, for things to be separate, revealing where everything belongs in this new creation. And here's the kicker. This moral and physical order is put in place before humanity even shows up on the scene. That tells you it's part of the original design, not some later fix.
So this brings us to the next pillar, instruction. And just like light, this was not an afterthought. Divine instruction was woven right into the fabric of the original design from the very beginning.
Just look at the context here in Genesis 2. Humanity is created and they're given everything they could possibly need: provision, a purpose, and relationship. It's inside this perfect environment that instruction is given. So it's not a punishment, right? It's the very structure that defines trust and responsibility within that relationship. And that's really what the Hebrew word Torah means. We often hear it translated as law, but a much better way to think of it as instruction or teaching. And do you notice the connection? The Torah is the light for the path, guiding us in how to walk within the world's intended order. See? It links right back to that very first act of creation. If that's the blueprint for order, then Genesis 3 gives us the blueprint for disorder. And honestly, it's a pattern that just repeats itself over and over again. It starts with a simple desire, which then leads to questioning the instruction that was given. That questioning, that opens the door to reinterpreting things, which finally leads to an action that just completely disrupts the original design. Understanding this pattern is absolutely crucial.
Okay, now let's bring all these threads together. We're going to go back to the Gospel of John, and you'll see how he doesn't introduce some new idea, but actually just reveals the original one in its fullness.
So when we get to the Gospel of John, and he opens up talking about the Word and the light, it is so easy to think he's kicking off a brand new story. But it is so critical that we understand he's not.
No, it's the original story, the one from Genesis 1, now just being fully unveiled. The word that John talks about is the exact same word that spoke creation into existence. The light he describes, it's the exact same light that first pushed back the chaos and brought order.
Just look at the job description here. The word in John brings life, it brings light, it confronts darkness. This isn't some new plan. This is the ultimate revelation of the very same power and purpose that was there from the first moment of creation.
And you know what? We even get a confirming witness in the book of James. He doesn't add anything new to this foundation at all. Instead, his teachings about how desire leads to destructive action, well, they directly echo that pattern of disorder we saw all the way back in Genesis 3. He's just confirming the original blueprint. So let's just pull it all together.
Each one of these texts, they play a unique role, but they're all communicating a single, unified message. Genesis, it lays out the original design for life. Psalm 19 shows how both creation and instruction declare that truth. John fully reveals the Word as the source of all that life and light. And James, he just confirms that faithfulness to this original design is what preserves order. It's one consistent story from start to finish.
And that leaves us with one final big question to chew on. If the foundation, this blueprint for order that was laid out at the very beginning, if it's this consistent, what does that imply about everything else that's built on top of it? How does that change the way we read the rest of the story? Now that's a question worth thinking about.